Camping. Loved by some for the fresh air, the night sky, and closeness to nature. Hated by those who would rather not sleep among the bugs, be away from their beds, and have to forego a hot shower. But there's more to this accommodation option than what the stereotypes tell us. Camping can be affordable, luxurious, unique, and a solution for your future group trip. Camping is not one size fits all. Today we share why every traveler should consider camping for their next trip.
Welcome to the Travel More podcast.
Each episode, we share custom itineraries, travel hacks, expert advice, and even stories of our past travel failures to help you level up your travel game.
I'm Shelly, a lover of plans, itineraries, and cheap flights. I'm an expert deal finder with one eye always on the budget.
And I'm Bruce, the improviser, ready to pick up where plans fail to turn letdowns into unexpected trip favorites. We're here to bust through barriers that stop you from making your travel dreams a reality.
So book that flight, buy the tickets, and say hello to your next adventure.
This is the Travel More Podcast. Welcome back to the Travel More Podcast.
Welcome.
Today we're going to be talking about camping.
And the great outdoors. You know, it's funny that this in particular is today's topic since it is like a rainy mess outside.
Yeah, I would not want to be outside camping today.
Yeah, even though we're going to spend all day outside pretty much today because we're going to go to a festival, like a fall festival.
Well, you know what they say. There's no bad weather, only bad clothes.
I knew you were going to bring
weather?
that up.
Is that how it goes? I think that's how it goes.
No, that is, without the for the weather part, that makes it kind of lame. But yeah, like there's no bad weather, just bad clothes. That's the...
Is that Fjallraven's slogan or whatever?
Yeah, we said that a lot in Norway this summer.
Well, to be fair, they have like the best clothes for any kind of weather because it's so outdoorsy.
Well, especially like rain. Like we thought like Seattle was rainy. Oh my gosh, Norway.
Well, it's also pretty cold.
That's what I mean. It's just like
rough.
Overall pretty difficult to be outside for a long time. But we're not in Norway right now.
That's true.
We're just
in
Connecticut. Yeah, and it is rainy. It's not super cold. But yeah, this would not be the best day to camp, but still doable.
But to be fair, we're going to talk a little bit about some gear you might want to have, and it comes down to being prepared.
Yeah,
you can still have fun even when the weather's like this.
100%. You're gonna have to go into it, you know, with the right mindset.
It's
honestly, that's like what I think for every type of travel.
That's what I was going to say, and also about weather, because Shelly dragged me down to the south. Well, not really. I did my
You
grad.
dragged
I
me
dragged
to
you
the
down
south.
to the south.
Anyway,
back to the south, and I could not handle 98 degree and 100% humidity every day, and you just said you have to embrace it. And
that's
it's
the
true.
same with the cold. I tell
is.
my southern family who comes to visit, and they're like all bundled up and like, you know, holding their arms really tight to their body, and I'm like, that's gonna make you colder.
Right.
You have to breathe through it.
I know, and if you keep your heat at like 75, something crazy, and you never expect to acclimate, you never will.
Yeah, right.
You'll always hate it. But anyway, we digress onto weather.
Yeah.
But it is important to think about weather when you're camping. But really today we want to talk about, you know, as the camping season is kind of coming to a close for a little bit. There's still some time, especially it depends on who you are, because I have friends that'll go
and where you are.
That's
this
true.
would be the only time to camp probably in the south.
That's true.
Would be starting now
because it's not
so hot,
terribly hot.
Yeah.
So I actually think this is a great time of year to camp.
Yeah.
At least being in New England, unless you're going to some more extreme cold camping, this is kind of like
towards the end.
But
it's also the most beautiful.
I think it's some of the best time to go.
Of course,
you have
all the fall foliage
nights
and stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But you know, we really wanted to do this episode also to highlight kind of that you don't have to be what people would consider like an outdoorsy person to enjoy camping in very particular situations. There might be a lot of reasons why you would want to do camping. So we're going to kind of point some of those out because, you know, camping was just never a thing, I guess, that really came up on my radar. And then we did it a couple times and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like this can be used to our advantage in a lot of different situations.
Right. I always think camping, I always thought of it as its own activity.
Right.
You know, and very much like bugs.
Yeah,
and
right.
Sleeping on the ground and having to cook over a fire.
Yeah.
And that's
not great showers, if any showers.
Right.
Or bathrooms or, you know, all these things that you think of when you camp. But that's not always the situation.
No, so we want to encourage everybody to think, like, don't write off camping as a potential accommodation for a ton of different types of traveling.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a couple that really have worked well for us, something that we hope to have coming up in the future. And then we're going to talk a little bit about if you do more like, well, not really primitive camping, but if you do like the typical, like in a tent in a campsite camping, some things that will make you much more comfortable.
And we'll also share a couple resources that we like to use when we look for campsites, and even some gear rental and, places we like to get gear as well.
Yeah, let's jump into it.
All right, so we're breaking this down to 3 different categories for camping. We're going to talk about car camping, or like trailer RV camping. We're going to talk about glamping. And then we're going to break down the classic category of more rustic type camping.
Yeah.
So to start off, why don't we go into RV and car camping? I think that's probably my favorite category.
Yeah, and I guess I would really consider those like very different things. So maybe we should talk like RV trailer more than like what people would consider car camping, because we'll talk about that later when we do rustic. So.
That's true. We could lump that down there. So yeah, more like trailer.
Yeah, or RV. Yeah, like the things that people like carry on the back that looks like there's no way someone could sleep in it because it's so tiny. Yeah, that kind of thing. But let's talk. So it's a great way to map out road trips, which we love road trips, and it can just be such a freeing experience to have a trailer or a RV, because you don't have to plan out those stops nearly as much as you do if you don't have one.
Right. You don't need to be worried about all the little hotels, motels, or availability. You just have to know, where could I park this thing? Where am I getting hookups?
Exactly. And there's actually another site that we'll link in the show notes that you can actually see where you can park for free. And this works internationally as well. So, you could just say like, oh, I know there's a couple free ones on the way, so we'll go to one of those, that we could just kind of pull over and park in. And
that's something I've never thought about this until recently, because Shelly and I have some future trips. We want to primarily see the country through trailer or RVing, kind of camping. I've never thought about doing this internationally. In my mind, it's always been, you take an RV in the United States because it's so big.
Great American road trip.
Right, like we did. I mean, we had a car, but it was at least
similar idea.
An SUV, so we had a lot of gear with us. But yeah, I think it's really cool that there's a lot of different countries, and we just came back from Norway, where so many people had campers, not even big ones.
No.
Just like, small sized van even.
Yeah.
But it was so many people, and they saw so much of the country that way.
Yeah. Well, I think this is important to point out. This is not just necessarily for like affordability or convenience. Like, you really can see a completely different side of the country, either in the United States or internationally, when you kind of go this route.
I agree. And I think one of the things I thought was fun is there's a communal aspect too.
Oh, for sure.
So we stayed at a campsite. They actually had a hostel, so we ended up,
This should go in our glamping category, but keep going.
I know, we were glamping in that regard, but other people were there. And it's just fun because there's a lot of different people. You could easily, meet other people and get involved.
I think that's kind of part of it. Like, you can obviously keep to yourself in campsites, but a lot of people who tend to go camping do it quite often. And I think that's part of kind of the setup of a campground, is like, you can also meet people. And like,
people
especially
often share things.
Right, especially if you have kids. Like, there's often like
together.
Playgrounds and, basketball courts or like something like that. So it can be very communal.
So some other things to think about when you're getting an RV or a trailer, there's a range of amenities. You can get something super simple, almost pretty much rustic in some ways, all the way to like absurdly luxurious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like
more than our house.
Yeah, like I think about like super yachts on water. They definitely have like super RV luxury mega things. So there's a huge range of costs and styles. And I mean, overall, aside from unless you're going to buy an RV, obviously it could be very expensive.
Yeah.
But in general, once you have it or if you rent it, it's going to typically be way cheaper than getting a lot of hotels on a trip.
Yeah. And so just to kind of recap this, the reason I would get an RV or a trailer myself in travel is one of 2 reasons. One, you want to go off the beaten path, and you don't want to have to rely on a hotel being off the beaten path.
Right.
Because also sometimes those are like not the best hotels, or like, they're just like not nice. So you can like have your traveling hotel, so you don't have to unpack. You don't have to like move kids around if you have kids. You're all in one place, and you can kind of choose where you make camp, so to speak, that night. So you can get really more into the off the beaten path. So that's one reason I would get a trailer. Number 2 is because you're going to a very expensive destination, and it can be a much cheaper option. Again, if you have a big party or you have a big family, or it's just very expensive. So an example of this would be like Disney World. I know someone who rents an RV and then gets a campsite at Disney, which is like $40 a night. which you will not find any hotel in Orlando
Right.
that you should ever stay at for $40 a night. And so it's more than that because you have to rent the RV. But the RV, I think, was like $100, so it's $140 a night, and they have like 6 people in it. They have a kitchen, they have a whole outdoor space.
It's
and
got air conditioning.
There's
I'm sure,
air conditioning, right? It's
like,
an RV.
You're kind of shielding yourself from the elements if you're someone who's like, I need
Right.
a little more comfort.
And they go like every year at Christmas, and then like the campground again is communal, so it has like a whole Christmas like thing where like, people put up lights and stuff, and that was like their family tradition.
I mean, it sounds super fun, but it's also super affordable when you think
Oh,
about it,
yeah.
especially if you're splitting it with 2 families.
Well, right now, just because I looked at it the other day, for like a client, it's the cheapest room you can get at Disney World right now for Christmas is $245 a night.
Right.
So
140.
140.
Split 2 ways if you wanted.
Yeah, with like you could have 6 people in there. For 6 people, it would be like $350, $400.
Well, and this
per
is the
night.
same feeling I had. I keep thinking about Norway because we just were there.
Yeah.
But you could spend a lot of money on accommodations.
Well, that's exactly another that's another really expensive destination that this would cut down cost tremendously.
Well, you
on.
also have a kitchen, even if it's small, because eating out in some places, some destinations like Norway is very expensive.
Yeah.
I think it's way more fun to kind of have that aspect, you have that taken care of with your trailer or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're really excited to try this out. There's a couple of future trips we have planned. One was Scotland, potentially getting a trailer and going like through the Highlands and seeing things. And the other one that I'm really excited about is New Zealand.
Yeah, those are our 2 like will happen. Just have to find the time. But so those are really the 2 reasons that I would rent a trailer: is affordability and very expensive locations, or you want to specifically get off the beaten path and don't want to have to necessarily change hotels every 5 seconds.
All right, so next up, let's talk about glamping.
Glamping.
I think glamping is relatively new. I mean, not any. How many years? 10 years?
I say, what are we considering new?
Well, to me, everything after 2000 is new.
Oh, that's almost 25 years.
Okay, it just feels new.
Okay,
Maybe
yeah,
glamping's not
new
that
if
new.
you consider 2000 new. Yeah, my middle schoolers weren't even kind of born.
Okay, listen.
In 2000.
And now I know how people feel as they grow older. Anything that's not the 90s or earlier.
Oh my gosh,
seems
2000.
New. Okay, maybe it's not new.
Also, you were like 13 or something. No, you were like 8 in 2000. Oh my gosh.
All right,
If you consider 2000 new, then yes.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Okay. My example of glamping, because actually now that I'm thinking of one thing about glamping is I always think it's like a bed and a tent. Like you see like the picture of like a big old tent with like literal bed in there.
You mean like Harry Potter?
I guess like Harry Potter.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The Triwizard Tournament?
Dude, the Triwizard Tournament is 100%
It's a great example of glamping.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what 100% they glamp all the way. It just makes me laugh thinking about that now. If only we could pull things out of like, it's like a chest, right? They had something.
No, it looks like a regular.
No, I know, but
tent.
it's like pulling it out of a hat. Like it comes from nowhere, and then all of a sudden they have like a kitchen.
Although, let me do a quick aside here. There is actually, and maybe I'll find it. I'll try to find it and put it in the show notes. But there is a place, I've seen it, I think on Instagram, which probably means it was on TikTok, but like I don't have TikTok, so once it gets old on TikTok, it comes to me on Instagram. And I definitely saw that there is, I think it's an Airbnb that looks like the Harry Potter tent from the
Triwizard Tournament?
Well, it's not actually.
No, sorry, the World Cup.
Yeah, the World Cup.
Quidditch Cup.
Yeah. And
that's what it was.
you literally go in and then you take a slide down.
What?
And it opens up to the thing we're talking about right now.
Where is this?
I'm telling you, I'm going to find it and put it in the show notes.
Okay, we'll find
I think it's somewhere like out west though. Like I think it's a legit like glamping setup.
So this is what I'm getting at though, because when glamping first kind of became popular, I was thinking of it as just a normal tent, but then someone sets you up a bed and it's kind of already set up for you.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of expanding my understanding of glamping to include a lot of like off the beaten path type accommodations.
Yeah.
Like even yurts.
I was literally about to say yurts. It's a big one.
That's growing. Like I'm pretty sure there's yurts you can stay in Vermont on ski resorts. There were a ton out west.
Yeah.
Like like people are building them to make a cheaper accommodation, but it's a little bit more. It's like a cabin, you know.
Yeah. So cabins I would consider most of the time would be a glamping situation for me in the way that I think of it. Although some are very rustic cabins, so you have to look carefully. But
if they don't have any services or water.
Right.
Electricity.
Right. So glamping kind of has, it's a spectrum, so to speak. So you're right. I think I've seen quite a few glamping situations where it is like a tent and it has I stayed in a glamping situation where it's like a cot.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Like the Acadia glamping, which is...
Well, it wasn't Acadia, but it was in Maine.
Okay, I thought, in Maine, coastal Maine.
Yeah, and it was like, it was a cot and it was like fancy in the inside.
Did they have string lights?
Probably string lights somewhere.
Right.
I just remember it was like very trendy setup, but there was not anything inherently.
It was still a tent.
Yeah, it was still
with
a tent.
With a fire pit outside.
You still had to go to like a communal bathroom.
Right.
That type of thing. So that's glamping, but more on the rustic side of glamping. Now they have you have like a bathroom and a shower in your tent. Oh, you know what I would consider glamping?
Are you going to say when we were in Uganda?
Yes. I was going to say that.
That's 100% a safari lodge glamping because it's like a permanent canvas tent.
Yep.
With some standing structures and like...
But we had a full bathroom.
Right.
Yeah, a full shower, like the whole thing. But it was a tent.
Contrasting this with like RVing or trailer, or later when we talk about car camping or rustic camping, this definitely gets back to like expensive sometimes. So you're not really glamping because you're trying to save money. You're glamping because you want to experience the outdoors, but you're someone who's like bugs, heat, like uncomfortable communal bathroom, having to do things myself, pitching the tent, bringing the gear. I don't know if I'm into that. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Right, but you want to be in on the action of the outdoors.
You want to sleep under the stars, or you want to just experience the similar type of thing.
Right.
Might be for you. This is why we're saying, like, when you think about camping, don't write it off.
Right. Yeah, I have a friend who works with me, and she's gonna go glamping, I think, out west, and she's gonna bring her mom, and she was like, yeah, we're not going camping, we're going glamping because my mom doesn't do camping. And I was like, I hear you, because she wants to be in, like, I think they're going to Zion or something, a beautiful national park, but they don't want to like stay off into a hotel where it's like far away to drive. They want to be in on it, but they don't want to do the whole pitching a tent deal, which I don't blame them. Sometimes it's just not a thing. So it is not the cheapest option typically, though. So that is the thing, is this is going to run you a little more expensive. Although you can find cheaper glamping options, but really, glamping is not one size fits all. Look at the things that it comes with. Because like I said, if you're expecting a bathroom in your glamp site and then you have to use a communal bathroom, you may not be that into that.
Yeah,
so make sure you read it carefully.
There's no uniform glamping.
No.
I would say it's definitely unique accommodations.
Right. Yeah. So, another glamping experience that we had was when we stayed in the Airstreams, I think.
Yes. Are you talking about in Homestead, Florida?
Yeah, it's like right next to the Everglades.
Man, if anyone is listening and has wanted to go to the Everglades or the Keys, you gotta stay here.
I don't know that it exists.
It doesn't exist anymore?
I feel like I tried to look it up recently and I was like,
Can I just say, this was the coolest thing ever. Shelly put this together when we were down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And
we went for Christmas.
There was a working farm.
Yep.
There's a lot, Homestead is like a ton of,
farms.
Fruits and everything down there because that's Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this, like, how do I describe it? There was a main house.
That the people lived in.
The people who work there, they're farm hands, they're the people who owned it. They had a giant pool and like a communal area. Mm-hmm. They did communal dinners and breakfasts every night. And it was all included. You could go grab beers or wine out of like their cooler. And
they had like a little tip bucket.
Take what you want, essentially.
Yeah.
People just hung out. There were fire pits. And then there were a bunch of like retro Airstreams that were permanently kind of affixed on the land with outdoor showers and like there was some privacy and also communal aspect of it. And
it was very cool.
It was probably one of my favorite places I've ever stayed.
Yeah. I mean, Airbnb definitely top.
Yeah. And the food was great because it was all from the farm. So we had like 20 tropical fruits every morning.
Tried lots of different tropical fruits we had never had.
And then the Everglades was probably like 10-minute drive to the park.
Oh, yeah.
Not even because it's on the outskirts.
Probably about 10 minutes because, it's a national park. So you have to kind of get into it.
I forget what gate it brings you to, but...
I think the South Gate, and we actually drove to the North Gate and then made our way down, I think.
You could take the whole day. Yeah. It was awesome. So
it was very cool. That was definitely a great example of glamping because it had everything. I mean, like, you could use all the communal stuff, but you didn't have to. And so it was like a permanent kind of fixture. It did have the outdoor shower, but it had an indoor bathroom, like a toilet. So it was like all the things you would want in a hotel room, but it wasn't a hotel.
But it wasn't a hotel, so I felt it was immersive.
Right.
I felt
right.
like I was staying and partaking in the Everglades the entire duration.
Right, without the mosquitoes.
Without having to deal with maybe camping in the Everglades, which I don't know who would recommend that anyway. People do it.
Yeah, people do it.
But...
I forget that there was like a mosquito meter. And I can't remember what the top one was, but it was like hilarious.
Yeah, well, no, like the baseline was just like there are mosquitoes here.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then like the top one was like it was like blacked out with mosquitoes.
Yeah, but the
said
word
unbearable.
unbearable. That's what it said. Unbearable. It was like a little like almost like a wildfire meter that you see. Thankfully, it was not unbearable when you were there, but no. I was like, that is hilarious. Like, what, you just turn around and go home?
Yeah, just don't.
You're
just
like,
leave.
I'm not doing this.
Evacuate. So to wrap up glamping, it can be more expensive, but a nice way to explore outdoor accommodations if you feel like camping's not for you. And it's also nice if you don't have the gear and you don't really want to set up the camp. You're pretty much renting a place that's already built and set up for you.
Mm-hmm, but it is a spectrum, so make sure you read all the fine print.
Right.
Let's go into rustic camping. So this is definitely what people think of when they think camping. So we're not going to go over the nitty-gritty because you know what it is.
You'll know what this is. But I will say, like, aside from backpacking, which is its own thing. Yeah. There's a lot of blogs and podcasts, I'm sure, that are just about backpacking and all the different setups and places you can go.
Yeah.
Or even just, like, campground camping. I think what people should take away from this is don't knock car camping.
Yeah.
Like Shelly and I saved so much money going on a 5-week trip out west from the East Coast to the West Coast, down south and across, just by looking up state campsites. And it's awesome because like there's so many, especially in the United States, there's so many state campsites and national parks.
Yep.
And they're all really well maintained.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Like, you could easily find reviews, but man, and one thing I didn't realize when we were doing this is we were just going to go national parks.
Yeah.
But
they were closed.
A lot of them were closed because this was like right during COVID.
This is the summer of 2020.
Right. Yeah. So we thought, well, we're going to go outside anyway because we're going to stay away from people.
Yeah. We just camped.
But state campsites were open, and then I realized there's so many of them. They're all really nice. And some of them are nicer.
Ooh, that one at Holland Lake, which I keep like, I feel like we've said this a lot of times, and I almost like don't want to keep saying because I don't want it to like get too popular.
Not the hidden gem that it is. Yeah.
But it is. That was like such an amazing. Like we just like drove up and you can like see the lake, and it's like your own personal glacier national park, which is one of the most beautiful national parks in the country.
Yeah, it's secluded. There's not a ton of campers there.
No, I think there may have been like 30 campsites or something. It was not a lot.
Not even. Yeah, and it's all on the lake.
Yeah, and beautiful. they were far apart. It's like when you get to Yellowstone, you're right next to people. These were like real campsites where you had some space between you. It was so nice. I think it was like $15 a night or something. It was like very cheap. And it was incredible. Now, we did have to use almost like, what do they call?
Vault toilet?
Yeah, vault toilets, which I actually don't think are that bad. But if you're a person who is like, absolutely not.
This isn't going to be for you.
No shower.
No shower. There's a lake. You can go swimming.
Yeah. And you can, like, you can rent or buy like an outdoor shower even, where it's like that's tent
something
thing.
Yeah, we've got a list here of things that we'd recommend you minimally have if you're going to be doing your own kind of camping.
Yeah, like big camping. But anyways, the point is that was like an obscenely beautiful camp trip.
And affordable. I want to say it was like
that's what I said. 30, I think it was like 15.
15 a night.
It was like very cheap. So, those things, they put you in a place you could never get to with an RV, because this was only tent camping.
Right.
You couldn't get there with an RV, and you couldn't get there on a hotel or glamping situation. Like this, you had to kind of give up some amenities, but you got essentially a private national park. That's what it felt like, at least.
Right.
Like we hardly saw anybody.
Yeah, there was like nobody there. And I think the proponents of like people who are campers who might say, yeah, I'm not doing glamping. I'm not getting an RV because I want to access more remote, more secluded. That might be for you.
Absolutely.
The reason people backpack is because the only way you can get some places is if you hike up to a lean-to or a shelter or a campsite.
Or your own backpack.
But again, that's more if you're literally just traveling to do outdoor stuff. When Shelly and I did this, because we had the car and we had our own camp set up, we were able to find these really nice sites, but then easily drive to do things. Like we went out and got food. We didn't always cook on our campsite.
No, actually, we didn't we didn't cook very often.
No.
Only a few times.
Just like usually breakfast and coffee was always a campsite
Which
thing.
we'll talk about how we did that in a minute, because we are not coffee snobs, so to speak, but we like our coffee.
I think a little bit.
Yeah, we like our coffee. We're
Snobbish.
we're not gonna skimp on it for sure. But the reason I would do car camping is for these reasons. One, it's cheap. It's probably the cheapest of, it's not privately. It is the cheapest, of all of these things, especially if you buy your own gear, if you're going to do it more than once. If you rent gear, it's still the cheapest, but it isn't as big of a difference.
It's definitely
to
worth
trailer
investing into, because once you have things,
then you have them.
Then you just have to pay for the gas and the site, which is way cheaper than anything else.
Or see if like a family member has some things you can borrow. That's what we did. When we went out, we bought some things and borrowed some things.
Well, you don't have to. This is something, I'm worried that I'm going to get the fever of something new and want to buy, like, I need all of these things, brand new items to outfit me completely. And it's like, nah,
you don't.
As you do more, you figure out what you need. And it's not hard to get secondhand stuff or borrow things and then slowly build your gear. Yeah.
So I would go because it's cheap. I would use car camping because it's cheap. I would use car camping because you really want to get as close to the action as you can without backpacking. And then the third thing is, if you have a big group, this is actually a really fun way to be all together without spending an arm and a leg.
Oh, geez, having to buy a suite or multiple rooms at a hotel.
So camping is the way that we're able to do a lot of our friend trips. And we're going, like, when we say camping, we're camping, like, on Cape Cod. So, like, that's not necessarily, like, super remote, whatever.
Yeah, we hung out at a really nice group campsite. We all had gear,
We drove to the beach. We drove to get, like, seafood.
We went and played mini golf.
Yeah,
It was all the same stuff you would normally do as staying at a house rental or a hotel, but way cheaper. And I'd say more fun.
Yeah, I mean, what's better than, like, going to a seafood market in Cape Cod, coming back and, like, cooking, what would be hundreds of dollars in a restaurant meal with all your friends and like sitting and drinking beers by a campfire, making some more. It's idyllic.
And, one thing to remember is, sometimes when we think about camping, we feel like it's always remote in the woods, but there are a lot of campsites in the middle of the action. When we were in Colorado by Breckenridge, we stayed at
like
a
off
campsite.
A highway.
Yeah, it was a little weird because it was like a reservoir, but you were like downtown.
Yeah.
And they had campsites.
For like $40 a night as opposed to like $250 a night Airbnb or hotels in Breckenridge.
Yeah. So worth it. And it wasn't, again, there's campsites that exist that are just for an accommodation.
Yep. So that would be the reasons I would choose, is kind of those ideas. It's like you can handle not the highest level amenities, but you're getting way cheaper, closer to the action, or in a place that you couldn't normally afford.
Right. All right. So here's some things that we think you definitely want to have if you're going to be car camping. We're not going to go into backpacking really, mostly just like setting up your own stuff from your car.
Yeah. Because backpacking, again, we're not the experts in backpacking.
No, but it's still fun. It's just that's hiking and backpacking and trekking. So you want a quality tent. I would definitely make sure you know how many people you're camping with.
Well, yeah.
And get the right size.
Yeah, but be careful. Honestly, if like for Bruce and I, we have a 6-person tent, I think.
Well, this is the caveat, right? So it's like you can buy a 2-person tent and it's going to be literally something to lie down in, that's shelter.
When they say 2-person, they mean 2 people can fit in it.
Lying down.
Laying down. Yeah.
So
it's very small.
Shelly and I, we have a Field and Stream tent from like Dick's Sporting Goods that we got for like $100.
Yeah.
And it's literally just one of those like...
It's like a pop-up tent. You could use it for soccer games.
Yeah, it's a square frame like pop-up with a top that you can put on or take off.
Yeah.
And then the tent just hangs. We timed ourselves once.
Oh, it was like a minute and a half
Oh,
maybe?
God, yeah. Like we got this out of our car and put it up in no time, and takedown is super easy, and you can stand up inside of it.
Yeah, so if you're going to be car camping like we did for 5 weeks... I would consider how hard your tent is to set up and put down. Right. Because you don't want to do that at like 9 p.m. In the dark. Like, you know what I mean?
Avoid, camping technology has grown immensely. There's all kinds of gear. But if you have to put together the poles that are like foldable, and really compressible, compactable, like I wouldn't be getting a backpacking tent if I was going car camping and moving around maybe on a road trip.
Yeah, if you have the room, just get an easy pop-up tent.
Yeah, get a pop-up tent. So.
All right, we're going to do this quick. So kitchen materials, normal things like sink, container for dishes, nature-friendly soap. We use Dr. Bonner's for everything.
Yep.
Water jug, 5-gallon is the way. Camp cups, silverware. But the big thing with, for me, for kitchen materials is the jet boil. Because that's how we make coffee. We make instant coffee, and then we also make espresso from a mocha pot on the jet boil. And then we combine them, and we are like little caffeinated bees or something.
I love jet boils because backpackers use them. You can use them at car camping.
Yeah, they're so easy.
They're small, they're compact, they're
You can use it to make food.
Yep.
Like, if you don't have a stove. It's very easy. If you're going to buy one thing to kind of splurge on, to me, it's the jet boil.
Yeah, jet boil. If you want to upgrade it, classic Coleman camp stove, or they have electric ones now, I think, too.
Those are more expensive. So if you're,
that's a little more of an investment.
Yeah, I would do that. Flashlight, headlamps, which you don't think you're gonna need until you do.
Dude, I would say headlamp over lamps and flashlight. Get a headlamp. That is key. Especially
you think you're gonna not need it, and then you're like, oh, I wish I had a headlamp right now.
Well, then it's 2 a.m. and you need to go to the bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
And it's scary.
It's scary. Layers of clothing depending on where you're going to be.
Yeah, think about the weather. Make sure you've got some rain gear.
Yep, foldable chairs. Hopefully everyone kind of has those. You can get them for like $10. Portable table. You don't necessarily need that because
you might have a picnic table at your site.
I don't think we've ever been somewhere without a picnic table.
No, typically they've at least got like a fire pit with grate and a picnic table.
Yeah,
but you can look it up.
Yeah. Quality cooler is a big one and nice if it drains because they're heavy when they get full. A big one, if you're like, I don't want to sleep on the ground, and we did that one time, and it was the worst.
It was.
We were in Cape Cod, so we didn't think it would be bad.
No, it was like
horrible.
hard-packed sand, so there's no give.
So rolling out an air mattress or an air mattress if you have a car is easy, but you can also get camping. What are they called? Mats. Yeah.
Well, we had one that was like a quick inflate. So when you roll it up, it kind of compresses down, and then when you open it up, it fills with air, and it's just like an inch of air between you and the ground.
It makes all the difference. Yeah. Tarps to put under tents or use as an extra rain protection. Hatchet, knife, lighters, matches. There's like a lot of things. We're gonna put a list down in the show notes because unless you're sitting here taking notes, you're like, wait, what did you say? So we'll put a list in the show notes. But
I will shout out to the hatchet though. Come on, if you want to split wood or if you need a hammer, it can function as both. Great camping tool.
Yeah, Bruce loves his hatchet.
And of course a pocket knife or something.
Oh yeah. But for all these other things, we'll kind of put this list in the show notes just so you have it. But we've been saying this kind of the whole time, but if you're like, well, it's a lot of stuff to get. I don't know if I really like camping yet. I kind of want to try it out, but I'm not sure. You can rent camp gear. I would rent it at REI because we're members there and it's cheaper, but there's a couple different places you can rent camp gear. So don't be overwhelmed by like, I don't want to buy all these things and then not know if I really want to do this. And then there are like finding campsites. Reserve America is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, we use that a lot, especially for state campsites.
Yeah.
Easy to find. Right.
And then there's a couple sites for RV, like Go RVing, and then like Cruise America, you can rent RV, so you don't have to buy one.
That's probably the one you see the most on the highway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll include all those links in the show notes just so you have an easy access to them. But that's kind of our overview of camping.
Yeah.
We love all kinds of camping.
And get out there.
Yeah.
Don't knock camping. There's something for everybody.
Absolutely. Don't think that it's not for you just because you don't want to sleep on the ground and use a vault toilet. There are many different
You don't
ways.
have to do that.
You do not have to do that. Not at all. But yeah, that's our camping episode.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. See you later.
See ya.
Did you know that every time you book a Disney or Universal vacation, you're paying for a service that you may not even be using?
Really?
That's right. Travel agent costs are added to your Disney or Universal vacation, whether you use one or not.
So you're telling me that I'm paying for something even though I'm not getting the help?
You got it. So next time you want to book a theme park vacation, make your money work for you. By booking with Magic Pass Travel, you'll get our expertise and years of experience without paying any extra and while supporting a small business.
Check out our show notes to find our contact information.
Can't wait to help you plan your next adventure.